one of the things that I want people to know is that you have value, and you have gifts and talents that nobody else has. You're special. And using those gifts and talents to be of highest service to others is going to bring the most joy to you in your life. And so focus on being joyful, focus on what lights you up.
Welcome to the Moxie Podcast. I love that each one of you are here today. This whole month, we've been talking about really kind of this mid-year crisis and how we don't end up in crisis, but that we continue to move forward and do that in a strong and healthy way. And it has been a joy to have a lot of the Clarity faculty share with you how they use tools, how it has changed their life, and just give you practical advice of how to do that. And so I'm excited to end this month with Renae and have her on and share a little bit about who she is. So welcome to the Moxie Podcast.
Thank you, Jenny. I'm very happy to be here today. And thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. So let's start a little bit of you just telling people a little bit of your background, who you are. I normally say like what you're best known for, however that might be. I feel like I'm known for a lot of things, so that's a very hard question to answer. But how about you tell our community who you are and where you're even coming from right now?
Well, I'm living now in Granbury, Texas. I was in Colorado for over 25 years, and I was in a career as a professional developer. So that's not from a technical aspect, but a people developer. So I help people develop their skills and talents and gifts and create vision for the future in my professional career with a large financial services firm. And I did that for over 25 years. I was in that industry, and recently have shifted gears. And so now I'm utilizing my skills as a clarity coach to work with individuals from all walks of life to help them achieve their goals and their vision.
I love that. When you started doing that, was there like a step before you're like, man, I really want to be more in this like consulting coaching side? Because I feel like there's always this little bit. I don't know if I've ever yet met someone who just steps right into kind of coaching or consulting. That might be your story, but I feel like there's always a little bit of a story before there of like, man, I really want to help people with clarity and vision. What got you to that career at first?
Well, I started out in the industry as a financial services professional. So I was working with clients and building my practice. And what I found was that I loved helping other people be successful in that arena more than I loved success on my own. So I think from my background, my mom was a teacher. And so her passion was always in helping people develop their gifts and talents. And that fulfillment that she got from that career was something that really influenced me as I started moving into other aspects of my career and saw what it could mean.
Okay. So now you're in kind of a new little season of being almost, out of that, but then using even clarity faculty as a tool to continue on to support people. So let's talk a little bit about kind of that introduction into just get clarity and shift and all these tools. When did you first step into that arena or start learning from that and using the tools in your own life?
Well, it's interesting because I was probably about 15 years into the financial services industry, and I really was struggling. I was having a really hard time, and I noticed that because of an environment that I was in, my thoughts were not where I wanted them to be. In other words, I was having a lot of negative below the line thoughts. I was really frustrated. And I met Kathy Hawk, the founder of Clarity International, through the Colorado Women's Chamber of Commerce. And I was curious about what she did and how she might be able to help me. So I actually went through the Clarity retreat back in 2010. And it really was a game changer for me because it allowed me to realize that I can choose my own thoughts, and my environment doesn't have to dictate to me how I choose my thoughts and what I choose to be and do. And so that was really a turning point for me by going through that program as a client. And I stayed connected with Kathy. I was in some other groups with other clarity people, and just progressed into believing that it was a great tool I could use in my career to help the professionals that I was working with, as well as help individuals outside of that arena.
Do you remember the first bridge plan you ever created?
Yes, I do.
Do you
And
want to, so for anyone listening, when we talk about bridge plan, it's just, something that we're trying to accomplish or get to, and you create a plan to it. I just was on a call with Kathy a couple weeks ago and like writing a new bridge plan. And I still have my first one because I laminated it. And it's like, it's so cool to look back, because when I went through as a client, it was in 2018, actually right after we met, because I was in just a whole funk, and I met Kathy for the first time at that gathering and conference we were at together. And then I went to her Colorado office, and it was such a magical moment of just like 3 days, of realizing even the picture blows my mind of just like how I stepped in, and then she took a picture, 3 days later, and I was like, what? That was only like 3 days of being with you, And so yeah. I would love to hear a little bit of maybe some of those, like maybe initial goals or things, or if whatever you want to share. Cause I think it's such a delicate, I'm so glad I kept it, because it's such a beautiful reminder of like, where I was, and to celebrate all those little wins to get me to where I am today. But it started somewhere.
mhm. I do remember it, and it wasn't very pretty because I am not a great artist, but it was very meaningful to me. And I remember one of the phrases that I put on there was to be a conduit of inspiration. It's always been important to me to lift other people up. And so that was really something that I was striving for. And in addition to that, I had a big income goal that, frankly, I'm not sure I believed at that point that it would happen. But shortly, within just a few months, it did happen. I got another opportunity to step into a new role, and to really work with individuals that were looking to achieve more. And so that led to, when you help other people be successful, then you create success in your own life in a lot of cases. And so that first bridge plan, I had the phrase conduit of inspiration. And it was about my love for learning and my love for helping other people learn. And it was also about, increasing my income so that my family would benefit from the time that I was away from them in the workforce. So I still have it. I have mine. I have several of them. I've kept them in a folder just to see the progression. And it's interesting how once you start that, Jenny, you get better and better. And Kathy talks about this when she talks about the river and the whoosh effect, and then how you have rapid manifestation once you learn the process and you start really utilizing the tools. So I will say that I did get to a point where I was like, I'm not going to put anything on paper because I'm not ready for it yet. At one
Yeah,
point.
she just recently told me to put out like I said, we just met, and I haven't done it yet. I haven't submitted because I'm like, if I put this down, that means there has to be steps to make this happen. And as much as I'm excited, it's exactly that. I mean, it's true. You believe it, you know what it takes to get there. And you start to truly, just be motivated in the right ways. I love that phrase, conduit of inspiration. I think one of my phrases I always say is go out and be a light in this world. And I think we're just really called to do that. There needs to be more kindness, and there needs to be more attraction of that. And so that's a beautiful start of being that. And now, over 15 years being able to still continue to do that. So that's awesome.
Thank you.
So I want to kind of bring us back to, we're in July, we're actually about to enter August. And at this point, I feel like there's two things that happen in the year. we either are really excited because we're like hitting goals and we're crushing it and we're like excited to keep pressing forward, or we have ruined all of those whatever New Year rhythms or resolutions, and we're just like are calling it a wash of a year, and we're like, oh well, just next year. Like we're already to sometimes to that point. So I kind of want to talk. I want to talk to both of them, but really those people that maybe feel a little bit unmotivated, uninspired. Maybe it's just been a really, really hard year. And speaking from also an entrepreneur who is in like the D2C space and e-commerce and things, and just seeing the nature of that type of business too, because I know we have a lot of listeners on that business side as well. But seeing the last couple years have been actually quite hard after COVID, because most online businesses, especially in the retail space, grew a lot in 2020, 2021, even 2022. And the last really 2 years have been difficult. And like, am I going to get back to that point that I want to be at, or am I going to push forward? So want to talk to those people. And like I said, we're comparing this a little to a midlife crisis, but we're in mid-year. We're not going to say crisis, but you might start feeling crisis creep up on you. So if you're sitting in front of our listeners right now, Renae, and you're kind of talking through that, I know we talked off mic a little bit of some practical tools that we can do, but what is something that you would start with your client, or how would you get them in a frame of mind that, let's have a bit more grit, not give up, and whatever advice you want to share, but also even maybe some practical tools that they can use in this time of the year.
Yeah, I think, that's really common for us to kind of get down into that plan and then start to have doubts and kind of be a little shaky about things. Or even we might have a situation where we get our lights knocked out completely, through whatever it might be, economic, it could be physical, it could be personal. There are things that will come into our sphere and will knock our lights out. We can let that happen. And sometimes it's hard to get back up. What I want people to remember is no one else can choose our thoughts. We get to choose our own thoughts. And so we can shift that dynamic simply by choosing different thoughts. And there's a verse, 2 Corinthians 10:5, that talks about taking our thoughts captive. And I always think of that when I feel myself having those negative thoughts and I'm hearing them, in my head, if I'm listening to monkey mind, or it's just my own thoughts because I have doubt and that shakiness, that lack of confidence. And I can choose a positive thought. I can stop that right there where the thought occurs, and I can choose something else. And one of the tools that I've found that is an above the line thought that works best for me personally is gratitude. So I will stop that complaining voice or that negative voice, and I will ask, what am I grateful for? And I will just start saying, even out loud many times, the things that I'm grateful for. And when I do that, then I'm creating a positive feedback loop. And positive feedback loops are expansive and creative. Now I can get in a place where I can be solution focused rather than problem focused. Because when we're having those negative thoughts and we have that negative feedback loop, we're just in the problem phase. It's hard to come up with a solution when all we're doing is looking at the problem. And so when I can get creative and have those above the line thoughts that I choose to think, then I can focus on solutions. I'm expansive. I can be creative about what I can do to make things happen in a more productive and effective way.
I love it. I kind of have a pointed question, because I find that in a lot of spaces, finances is a big stressor for a lot of people, and it completely shuts them down. It potentially, right, pushes them into doubt. Again, a lot of frustration, and closes up those expansive thoughts, closes up that creativity. I feel it's beautiful now to see that even in maybe a stressful, or at least a pinch or stressful financial situation that I might be in, I can still think of the future. I can still vision. I can still put myself in that space, when before it would completely turn my lights off and shut me off. And I would like my below the line default is habituation. So it's like, let me just hide under my covers and no one will find me for 5 days or something. So I really have to fight hard to like push against that, because I know that I naturally just want to close off and not have any thoughts for myself or be able to even bring that to my team. And as a leader, it really, I mean, it will affect my whole dynamic of my organization, right? If that shuts me down. So if someone's in that space that is just feeling that crunch, or even specifically in a financial crunch, is there anything, I mean, I know you just gave amazing advice now, but is there anything that you could say to that point? And I'd be curious if you even have some of your own personal testimonies or reflections that you would want to share with our listeners of how you kind of, you know, overcame those harder moments.
Yeah, when you talk about finances, that is a real life challenge that people experience, and especially for entrepreneurs and professionals. So I worked with people that were entrepreneurs. All their income came from their efforts of what they were doing. And so a lot of times when they would have a down month or a down few months where the income wasn't there, they start focusing on the problem. And I did this when I was in their position as well, when I was running my own practice. And then, I start thinking I'm not good at what I'm doing, like all of these negative thoughts come in. And so one of the things that I tried to do for myself, and I certainly, as I gained more experience and had more tools from going through the clarity training, was I would say, what can we do? Because everything doesn't have to be done with money, right? There are things that we can do that can grow our business that don't necessarily involve money. And that could be for the people that I worked with, it might be reaching out to people that were their cheerleaders, people that were on their side that wanted to see them be successful, and to brainstorm ways to grow their business more effectively in ways that don't involve money. So that might be, going to a place where you're meeting other people who can support your business and bring new revenue into your business just simply by their testimonials for you or their encouragement of what you're doing, introducing you to the right people, introducing you to new tools and ideas. All of those things. I think too many times as an entrepreneur, we think that we have to find all the answers within ourselves. And if we'll be creative and look out into the world, we can also find others who have solutions for us that we may not be aware of.
Yeah. And I think it's not just even finding within ourselves, it's like also finding like right now. I think especially in the West and the United States, it's like this instant gratification. We see it through consumerism. We see it through just, even the next generation coming up and wanting to be like the head honcho right away. And that it just takes a lot of, it takes time, and it takes time of cultivation. So I think what I've learned the most in my journey, specifically as an entrepreneur and that hat that I wear, is that even in the struggle is exactly that. Go out and find all the things that you can do now, whether that's networking, whether that's a couple other networking virtually or in person, or, making yourself available, because it's all about the long game as well. Like it's not going to happen right now. And those relationships are truly going to lead to that next door. I find that if the best sales are through like direct referrals, right? Like that
Yeah.
cultivation of people who trust you. And when we can have that trust as a foundation, it changes, a lot of what we're doing. Um, so thank you so much for sharing. I know finance, that could be like a whole nother podcast of like, let's just talk about finances and how we work through that. And there's so many other things in our personal life and just, and what we're striving for that, we can apply these principles, especially in the sake of gratitude. I love that you started out with that, because I don't think we are aware enough, or we have trained ourselves to do that, to catch ourselves in the complaints. But when those thoughts are happening in the back of our head, like if we're not aware of how to capture them, which I love that you use scripture in that, of how to capture those thoughts, like it will yeah, totally affect your mood. And then you will continue to affect your near field of people and all of that. And we, again, want to be lights. And that's my hope throughout this whole month, that as you guys have been listening, of how you've been able to hear from incredible people all of July, how they apply it to their life and how they've seen practical change. And so I'm hoping that you guys can be encouraged in that as well. But Renae, I know you've had some stuff happen over the last couple years and changes, and you're in this new, I don't season, I don't like to use the word season all the time, but new chapter of your book in
Yeah.
life. And would love to talk about you just personally. Like, what are you excited about now coming up? And what have you, like, as you have been maneuvering just changes and even healing, what's something that you've learned in this chapter, and what you're excited about next?
Well, I think that, we all have those shadows that come up. And for me, mine is overdoing. And so for years, I was an overdoer. I overdid
We sound
everything.
very similar.
And that can be very, very draining, not just mentally, but also physically. And so I learned in the last couple of years how important it is to take care of me and practice one of the primary principles of clarity, which is sacred selfishness, which means I have to take care of me so that I can be of highest service to others. And so I recently was able to officially retire from my role with the financial services firm and take some time for myself. And it was very important for me to do that, to take some time for myself. But I also had, something that knocked my lights out because I had an accident. And I was unable to walk for several months because I was told that I had to be non-weight bearing because of the injury. And that really gave me time to just feel what it's like to not be constantly doing. And I know many people that see their worth in what they do, but it really is in who we are and what we bring to the table and how we impact the world and others around us. And so it gave me a lot of time to think about that. And it also gave me time to review those vision plans, those bridge plans that I had created, and to see all of the things that I've been able to accomplish because I spoke it into existence. I created the plan and I believed it, and those things happened. And so the place that we're in now, the environment that we have, my husband and I, it's because of a bridge plan that we created. So it allowed me to really appreciate all of those things that we had been able to manifest in our lives, and to think about what is it that I bring to the table. In fact, day before yesterday, I was going through and studying some material that I had from the past. And I remembered something that I used to do, and I used to have my people that I'm coaching do, and it was to create a list of your gifts and talents, because that really will give you an indication of what lights you up. And when you find what lights you up, it doesn't matter what position you're in the world, you can still use those gifts and talents, and you're going to do things that light you up, and that's going to create more effectiveness and flow. And so I made a list, and I used to always make people come up with 10, because most of us can come up with 3 or 4 gifts or talents that we have, but it's hard, a little bit more challenging to come up with 10. So I created a list of 10 gifts and talents that I have. And then I really focused in on how that relates to what lights me up, because I believe that the gifts and talents that we have are truly gifts. We're created that way. And when we use those gifts and talents, we're naturally going to be lights on. And so focusing on that and using those for the world to be of highest service is really important. And so using curiosity and high noticing, we can ask, what lights me up? What are my gifts and talents? And what do I want to create? And I've really been focusing in on that for myself lately, because, you have to coach yourself as well as be coached sometimes. And that's really helped me to reevaluate where I want to be and what I want to be doing. And so I've got some things coming up. And also, it's interesting how it will bring things into your realm. I've had some people call me that said, "Hey, I need your help." Well, I haven't been marketing anything for the past few months. I'm just now fully recovered from the injury, but people are starting to call me, and I know it's because I'm focusing in on what lights me up and creating that vision for the future. Another thing that I think is important is to have a vision. And sometimes it's important to go back and make some adjustments to our vision. Maybe not the vision itself, but the action steps. Sometimes we have to make adjustments to time. The timing can be a little bit different, or the financial part of it, the time and money. And so when we're creating that vision, we don't think about time and money. We're in the field of all possibility. What I want to create? There's no limits. And but then when we get down to, we have that dream and we've put it out there, we do have to create those action steps. And sometimes it's a matter of reevaluating those action steps. Are there other steps that we need to take? Or are there things that we need to put maybe in a different order? And that can be something that we look at on a mid-year basis to get over that hump of not feeling like we're getting where we want to be.
Yeah, I love all of that. If you guys hopefully are listening on the podcast right now, whether you're driving, walking, or whatnot, I think those are like very practical steps of right now. If you're feeling unmotivated, like sit down and write those 10 talents and gifts. I don't think we think about that enough. I am also Gallup Strengths Finder certified. So I talk about your strengths and a lot about honing into that versus obviously working on things that might not necessarily be the best for us to work out. We can always train ourselves and get better, but you're right. When we are seeing our talents and our skills and we're understanding that better, it's going to feel natural. It's also going to get us excited. And we're going to have inspiration behind that. And I love to refocus people on that of like, truly what I love when I'm sitting with Kathy and I'm talking and I kind of know what I'm excited about, but then when she like affirms me and she's like, "You are so lights on," it makes me feel good. I'm like, yes, I need to go in that direction. Or I need to be putting my steps there. And so I think Renae did an amazing job, guys. If you're listening to what does it look like right now as we're mid-year? How do we focus? I think first we need to have gratitude for what got us to where we are today, whether that's just in the last 6 months or in many, many years. And then second, as we're looking forward to have a clarity of vision as well, the more we can be clear and especially align ourselves with our skills and our talents, and but also in our giftings, but also our core values. I think yeah, we do not think about it enough of what we are truly innately built to do. And God created us all so unique. And when we can really hone into that and understand that, it's really powerful. Instead of looking to the next person right beside us and comparing, but truly looking in like internal and understanding what we need to do to move forward. So I'm hoping that as we've ended July, you guys are feeling a little bit more confident in what it's going to look like to take on the rest of 2024 and to take it one day at a time, to not rush through it, but to be present right where your feet are and in the moment. I can relate to you when you talk about overdoing. I feel like in the last 2 years, it's been more of a healing process for me to understand, okay, what does it look like to prioritize correctly, to be right where I'm at, but to also have that sacred selfishness for me and to really care for myself. So totally can relate to overdoing and just the habits of that create there. And you have to be really intentional not to overdo, because it's natural for us to just keep going and doing that. So you have to be intentional to just be. But as we end today, I would love our listeners to, one, know where they can find you if there's a specific website or anything that we can make sure we put in the show notes, so how they can find you as Renae. And then lastly, what is just one last thing to live by that you would love to leave our Moxie community with?
Thank you. Yes, I am in the process of redoing my brand, but I do have an email address, and it's just my name at gmail.com. So it's RenaeMorrish at gmail.com. If someone wants to get in touch with me, they can reach out there, or they can also go to the getclarity.com website and fill out a questionnaire, and Kathy Hawk will get that to me as one of her coaches. And so for final thoughts, it's really interesting. I've been thinking about this since you mentioned it to me. And one of the things that I want people to know is that you have value, and you you have gifts and talents that nobody else has. You're special. And using those gifts and talents to be of highest service to others is going to bring the most joy to you in your life. And so focus on being joyful, focus on what lights you up, and understand that resistance is normal in the field, and sometimes it's there for our protection. It may be there to slow things down so we can make adjustments, and it might be there because timing is something that we don't fully understand, but have faith and know that you're where you need to be, and you're doing the things that you need to be doing. As long as you're focused on your vision and your lights, you're going to bring great things to the world.
Thank you so much, Renae, for joining us today, and yeah, just sharing your wisdom with us in this time. I'm very, very grateful for you and who you are, and your heart and your light. And for everybody here listening, we just hope that you have an amazing week. You come back and listen next week as we go into a new month. And if you're a nonprofit leader, we will be talking to nonprofit really, I guess, strategists throughout all of August, which will be really fun. So come back and you can learn more all throughout August. But as always, Moxie on.